Rugby. Let's move on to Bath City, because plenty happening in their world this week, not least the big news that the National League North and National League South seasons will be declared null and void. This follows a vote among the clubs earlier this week, Bath City among those involved in that. So let's find out a bit more about all that, and welcome along, as we have done many times before on the Saturday Sports Show, to Bath City manager Jerry Gill. Good afternoon, Jerry.
Afternoon, Owen. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. And yourself? Well, we obviously spoke last week, and I guess what we had at the back of our mind might happen, has happened in many ways. Just fill us in a bit on where we are at the moment.
Yeah, so like you say, really, I think the inevitable's happened. It's almost like a little bit of, I don't know, relief's probably the wrong word, but it's the inevitable's happened. It means there's clarity. It means now that we know the league is null and void. Everything stops. There's no relegation. There's no promotion. I know some teams, in fact some local teams, are calling for mini leagues, mixture between the north and the south for promotion. I don't see that working. I just don't see. We have to be mindful of the integrity of the competition of the league, and certainly with us, we've still got. If we were to carry on, we certainly have 81 points to play for, Owen. So who's to say? We're in pretty confident mood where we were at. Who's to say we wouldn't have ended up in a playoff spot? So I think that's a no-go. So for us, really, it's now taking away the doom and gloom, taking away the disappointment, trying to be positive, trying to look forward, and trying to plan for what will be a new season now.
I mean, the club, we've spoken about this before. The club were very clear on their position while all this was going on, and they felt, and I know you agreed with this, that it wouldn't be right to carry on, and indeed wouldn't be possible to carry on just because of the financial constraints you guys were under.
Yeah, it's purely that. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't around the safety, because as we know, the world looks like it's getting back on its feet. Fingers crossed. It was around securing the long-term safety of the football club, which is paramount. So, we spoke about it before. When I first came in 3 years ago, the club was making a loss of over £100,000, and that's not sustainable. And in recent years, last year we only lost £20,000, which is really good as a business model, away from my side, the football side. But that's had a huge contribution. So, 56% increase in attendance, as we all know, at Twerton Park. Merchandise sales, marketing, commercial income coming into the club, along with business that, I've learned a bit about sort of over the course of the last few weeks. Businesses that use Twerton Park, such as CrossFit, Puro, WeBuyAnyCar.com as well. That's huge income that's coming into the football club. So there's no way, without any funding, without any grants, we were going to take a loan. And it's a very, very sensible decision. Of course I'm disappointed. Of course, as a football manager and us as players, and as a staff, we want something. We train for something on the end of it on a week, but it's not feasible. It's just not to happen. So I'm in the process, and already I have started. As soon as we got the decision, that was clarity for me. It meant then I could start planning for next season in terms of recruitment, but also working on some things I've got in mind for the players for this season still.
You touched on it there, and it's important to say that when this vote happened, it was by no means universal one way or the other. But Bath City, like other clubs, had their position on it. You touched on it earlier that some clubs are now sort of mooting mini leagues, all this sort of thing. I mean, in my head, when I was listening to that last night, I couldn't work out how that was going to work. And I guess you think the same, don't you?
Well, I do, yeah. I mean, listen, I get it. The clubs are up near the top. They'll probably say, look, we deserve to be up there. We deserve a crack to get a promotion or try and get a promotion. But there's no guarantee in that. So to go into a mini league, to even sort of mix the north and the south, I just don't see how it's feasible. You can't mid-competition then make up a new competition. That's unheard of. So it has to be ratified by the FA first and foremost as well. So I don't see that happening. I don't see the FA suddenly saying, okay, let's reinvent a new league, so that some clubs who, rightly or wrongly, have spent a lot of money and are in a position at the top of the league, because most of the teams are up there, the ones with the bigger budgets, the ones that have had a real good crack at it. And I know some parties have put a lot of money into it and it's come out of their own pocket. And I get that, I totally get it. But for the integrity of the league and the competition, from what we're about, that just doesn't sit right with me. And I would say the same if I was third, or if I was third from bottom. And like I say, I'll repeat, we've still got 27 games to play, and that's 81 points, and we were pretty confident that we'd pick up quite a good number, because it's just starting to hit some form. without the season stopping again, and hopefully we get some continuity. But who really knows, Owen? Who really knows how the season would have finished? We've seen teams at this stage of the season in the top three drop out of it. And we've seen teams come from mid-table, end up in a playoff position, and then go up from the playoffs. So it doesn't seem fair on the league, and hopefully it just remains as it is for me. Just we have to take it on the chin, all of us, every single club, and say, right, okay, how can we be creative now? What can we do between now and what's going to be 4.5 months before we come back for some clubs? And what can we do with our players? And what can we do looking forward?
I'm going to ask you a bit about the future in that in a minute. But I mean, just how do you think you'll reflect on this period, this 13 game season that you kind of had? I mean, do you think it's, in a couple of years' time you'll have almost forgotten all about it? But how will you? And indeed, not just that period. I guess it's the end of last season as well, where it all got affected. I mean, how will you reflect on that period?
Yeah, it has. Well, it's been a continuation from the playoffs, really. I mean, so the bizarreness of having to wait 3 months to go back into a playoff and then playing that, and the reflection. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to forget this, are they? I don't think. Hopefully, we don't end up in a position first and foremost like we are or have been. So, a pandemic that no one in the world expected to be in, and it's affected a lot more things than just football. But if we're talking football in Bath City and the way it's dealt a blow to us, it's astronomical. Someone spoke to me this morning actually and said, it's Brian Tinian at Bristol City, because I was having a chat with him and thanking him for the loan players again. And he said he thinks we've really been affected. It's easy for me to say, and people say it's excuses, but we've been affected more than most because of Twerton Park. Twerton Park on a match day is vibrant. Twerton Park on a match day drives us home. It gets us points when we don't think we're going to get points. Great interaction with our home fans. And a real buzz around the place. And I spoke to you before about this. Having to come out of a bar at the top of the stand and come through a terrace onto a pitch just didn't feel the same. There wasn't much enjoyment, if I'm being totally honest. I was finding it really difficult to enjoy games. The game itself, Owen, had changed. It changed from a good competitive game of football to a game of squealing, appealing, benches up in the air, referees put under extreme pressure because of no crowd noise. I spoke to referees. They were affected because they also sort of fed off the fans as well within certain moments of games. That gave them an extra boost or an extra reaction maybe in the last 20 minutes. So it's affected a lot of people, and we'll look back on it. I mean, you have to learn from bits. Of course, there's some bits in my recruitment I haven't got quite right. You find out a lot about characters, but a lot of people have been affected off the field as well. So family lives have been affected, and that's brought to us on a Tuesday and a Thursday as well. So trying to be empathetic, sympathetic, and understanding to individuals has been key in the period as well. We've had people that have suffered COVID positive tests. Thankfully, they've all come through. And that's the main thing as well. Everyone's come through healthy at this stage. But from a football side, it's one that we'll probably have to cross off. The interesting thing is, because it's null and void, Tommy Conway will never exist in Bath City's history. And nor will goals scored by Tom Smith this season, Donovan Wilson. The only thing that stays is bookings in suspensions and sendings off. So Donovan Wilson, for instance, who's under contract for next year, has still actually got 1 game suspension to serve. So that's quite sad for a young man like Tommy Conway, who's had a really successful loan period and scored 9 goals. That's not ever going to be on the record books anywhere. So now's the time for rebuilding. Now's the time for being creative, like I spoke to you about, and trying to look forward in a positive manner.
We'll talk some more about the club in a minute, and obviously, your side of things, you can only control the bits to do with Bath City, but I guess in a wider sense for the National League, South and the other divisions there, surely the key thing now has got to be getting into a situation where you can restart or start a new campaign properly with everything in place, whenever that is, August, September, whenever, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Pre-season after we've planned. The National League now have got the time. That's the good news about it. The National League now will have the time. Hopefully they'll have the resource to get the league set up and ready to go properly. Competition will only run properly again with fans. Let's make no bones about it. Until we get spectators into stadium, it's going to be difficult for clubs to fund it because the ongoing situation with finances will continue. So let's hope that the R rate continues to drop. Let's hope that cases drop and the death rate drops, and we have a good spring and we have a good summer. That's the key to it. The weather turns, and I think that helps as well. and the pandemic and COVID becomes flu-like, and something we're going to have to deal with, I think, for the rest of our lives, but something we can manage. And that's the only way I see the league properly being able to start up, is because we'll be able to get our fans back in and the clubs will be able to trade again.
We mentioned to the club supporters and on social media that you and indeed Paul Williams, who's coming on with us after 3:00, we're coming on the show today. So we asked sort of for any messages for there. I have to say the ones we had through were very very positive messages and wishing you guys goodwill. But we did have a question as well. Question from Pete, sort of saying, while the suspension or the cancellation, if you like, of the season is a disappointment for players, fans, and everyone associated with the club. Obviously, the new season, I guess, is just around the corner now. And his question was, what do you do now? So let's get into that. What, as manager now, what's your role over the next 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, good question from Pete there, and thanks for it. And also thanks for all the messages. I know there has been a lot of support, and it hasn't gone unnoticed in regard to finance. Some people retaining the season ticket for this season and saying, look, keep that Bath City. So little touches like that go a long way at our football club, and we've got such a great support. From me, from the football manager, from my son, I'm sure Paul will echo it later. I want to say a massive thank you to the support, not only in finance but also in their vocal support as well. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and that's great. And to Pete's question, yeah, of course. I mean, I've started to be creative already, so I've started to, and people know I am quite creative as a coach, and I like to think I'm forward thinking as a manager. And already I've got my spreadsheet done, Owen, of player targets. We've got a company called Stats Bomb, as you know, Bath-based, who support us. They're now going to get me lots of details on players I've targeted, so around stats, so I can start to build some stats and look at clips on those current players. But another thing is the group now, and it's important. We're going to work with the group. The easy thing for me to say, really, Owen, would be, right, okay, let's down tools and see you in mid-June, for example. But what I'm going to do, I've sort of gone back to my academy coaching days, where in those days we had time. And you haven't got time like this in non-league normally, but we got time now to really nail down and work and strip back individual players. So I'm going to do individual profile programming for players. So if you're a right back, or if you're a centre back, if you're Jack Batten, for instance, okay, Jack, what do you need now? What's the bits we can improve on? Look at all four corners. So look at psych-social, look at the physical, look at the technical and tactical side of things. And how can we build your profile and improve you as a player in what is a given moment of time in a season that we never normally get? So we're going to allow us also to work individually. So also around at the moment still social distancing, if you like, bringing players in on a individual basis over 2 nights, Tuesday and a Thursday night, in smaller groups. Work with my sports science, work around some analysis stuff that we've seen from them as well, and the medical team, and also with us as coach and myself and Jim. And that can do nothing but improve players. So I like to think that might give us a little marginal gain going into next season. Now, people might listen to this and may copy it down the road in Chippenham, I don't know. But if they do, they do, and that's fine. But I'm fortunate enough to say this is my job, and I want to give it my best, like I always do. But it's importantly, I support my players now in this present moment. Of course, there's players that we're going to have to give some bad news to, and that's football. We're going to have to release a couple. But we're also going to have to work hard to retain a couple as well. So that's my thought. That's my main purpose. And then, of course, then starting to plan some pre-season. How will that look? What's the week's going to look like? We think it'll be longer. We think there'll be more games in it as well to get them up to speed. As you can tell from my voice, I've gone from being disappointed to being excited, positive, and looking forward really to what the future holds now.
And just to say a bit about your squad there, because obviously you mentioned recruitment and looking around, etc. Obviously, non-league football is quite a transient thing. Players do move around a lot. How many of your squad are with you beyond this point, if you see what I mean, or would have been with you anyway, just going into next season? I mean, how's the squad balance look in that respect?
Well, if it was a normal season, they'd still be running their contracts, and we wouldn't actually be talking to them until around now, probably a little bit later. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is we haven't had enough games to look at players in game time. Obviously, we see them in training, but at this present moment, we've only got 3/4 under contract for next season, and that's contracts that have been carried over. So you've got Alex Fletcher, Donovan Wilson, and Lloyd James. Tom Smith is under 24, so. Although his contract hasn't been renewed for next season, and we're in discussions with him on that. Also, if he was to leave the football club, at worst case scenario, we would be due some compensation for Tom as well. So we're covered on that front as well, and that's key players to us. And of course, then I've got to have discussions with the other ones. Not to say other ones within the group aren't going to be offered contracts. I have to be sensible with what I offer within my budget. I haven't got a defined budget yet, and that's a difficult thing as well, Owen. I was with Paul yesterday in the office all day, talking over a number of things. Paul's fantastic with me. He's my day-to-day. Nick sort of manages it from a distance with a lot of support from other staff at the football club. But Paul's my go-to. Paul's my shoulder to cry on. He's my support. He's my ally, and he works tremendous for the football club on a lot of aspects, day in, day out at Twerton Park. So we had a good chat yesterday. What Paul can say to me, Jerry, this is your budget for next season, because we can guesstimate, but we don't really know until we know, A, that those businesses are coming back into the stadia, and also that the crowds will be back in at Bath City Football Club as well. So that's going to be a bit of a juggling act, one that we can get through, I'm pretty sure. And then, like I say, we'll do everything we possibly can then around the football club to be creative, not just with the players. I spoke to John Bickley as well. There's some stuff we'll be doing, support with the foundation and other areas that we might be able to support with the community with the football club while we've got some downtime. Do
you think it will change clubs at your levels, the way contracts, etc., and all that sort of side of the game works? Do you think it is capable?
Yeah. I don't know whether contracts will change. I mean, a lot of clubs still have players on non-contracts. We may have to do that. We may have to offer players non-contracts so that you're not committed so much to a long-term financial plan then as well. So we may have to do that with certain players. I think certainly in the summer there's going to be a lot more players up for grabs, Owen. I think it'll be a free-for-all, and it's important that we do our due diligence now. What I wasn't able to do last summer, I'm a stickler on this, is get to really sit down and speak to them as characters and players and people. Because of the rush and because how quickly we had to get pre-season done because of the playoffs, recruitment was late, and as I said before, we were 3 months behind everyone else because we went into the playoffs. Now this time, there's no excuse for that. What we will be waiting on, of course, is the National League, because there's players in the National League that we've got targeted that may be dropping down to our level, or possibility of dropping down to our level, that I've already spoke to over the last 2 seasons anyway. So I'll be mindful of that, watching that, and then also watching the AFL and seeing what players are being released from League 2 clubs, and seeing if we can get a conversation with them. So yeah, lots of hard work, lots of due diligence, lots of research to go on, and eyes and ears out there and speaking to people, and then how it looks at other clubs, I really don't know. But with us, we'll be working around the same sort of model, hopefully. But maybe, like you said, then we may have to tweak a few contracts in regard of maybe non-contracts to see us through if we can.
No football, but the work goes on for the next few months, Jerry. Isn't it? I mean, it's fair play to you. It's going to be a lot of hard work.
It is, and I'm going to be out watching games as well. That's the other thing. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to one today because it's a bit late in the day, and a lot of my former clubs have been great, like Cheltenham Town, and I went and watched Gloucester the other day to try and do a little bit of homework, if you like, on how that looks for National League, what sort of player, what sort of levels. I'll be going to watch 23 games as much as I can. Bristol City are great with me, as we know, and Bristol Rovers, Swindon, Cheltenham, all of them. So, I'll be getting out watching as many games as I can. I'm watching games 24/7 on the TV for my own learning, really. I'm forever evolving and forever learning, and that's important as well. But the good news is we will be seeing those players. There will be contact time with my squad in this period of time as well. And like I said, I think they were really enthused by that. We had a meeting with them last night, and they were really enthused. They were excited on the prospect of, imagine being a player, and I've gone to you and I've said, look, we want to improve you and make you better, and we've got time to do this in all areas. And I think that's a good positive to finish on, that we've got time now to able to help these players.
Absolutely, and hopefully hit the ground running next season whenever that comes. Jerry, thanks as always for your time. We really appreciate it, and we hope we can have you on again soon enough, and keep us posted with what's going on with you.
Will do. Thanks, Owen.
Excellent. Thanks, Jerry, so much.